May it please the court, members of the jury. Mr. Ramirez was wrongfully shot in the back. He was gunned down while he was starting to get up off the ground after a wrestling match. The officers shot him and then had to go back to the station and write a report about the man that they'd shot. They had negligently shot him. To show negligence in a court of law, I have to show duty, breach, causation, and damages. All four of those, but it's fairly simple in this case. Police officers have a duty to not hurt innocent citizens. If they do hurt innocent citizens, they've breached the duty that they have. Their breach of duty caused Mr. Ramirez to be shot in the back. And he's sustained substantial financial losses, and he's not entirely well yet. So he has damages also. Also, the police officer was on duty. He was an employee of the city of Chicago. He was doing the sort of things officers do in the scope and course of their duties. And so the city is liable for what this officer did when he shot Mr. Ramirez. There are a variety of facts in this case that indicate that Mr. Ramirez is telling the truth. Some of them are just little things. Mr. Ramirez says that his version of the story, he lost the fight. Most men, if they're going to make up a story about a fight, they're the one who wins. If you watch television, if you've been trained in the military, you knife fight with the knife down low. You don't knife fight stabbing this way. You leave yourself pretty exposed while your arm is up for that. It's just not a good way of doing it. It's not, there are people that do it. It's rare. It's just not very probable. They shot a man they didn't know, and then they had to go back to the office and write a report about the Mexican they shot. They shot the wrong Mexican. This Mexican doesn't speak Spanish. They wrote in their report that he tried to stab them holding a knife in his right hand, but Mr. Ramirez is left-handed. And then we have bullet path. It's fairly easy to explain which way the bullet went this way. We don't know exactly what angle Mr. Ramirez was at when the person behind him fired the gun. But the bullet went in the right shoulder blade and ended up 2 or 3 inches lower, just above the diaphragm. Remember, he had his arm raised, and was pushing down. That causes the entire shoulder blade to shift out and up. So it's definitely had to, after it went through the shoulder blade, it had to turn down to end up where it ended up. Also, Chicago has one of the largest police departments in the nation. With a large police department, you have a large budget. With a large budget, you also get a large crime lab. You have lots of new fancy equipment. And they sent the knife to the crime lab, and with their new fancy equipment, they weren't able to find discernible traces of blood or fingerprints on the knife to show who was stabbed or who was doing the stabbing. Last, we have an issue of the knife was closed. Did you catch that when we went through the evidence? The incident report of Sergeant Sloan Thomas. He said when he saw the knife on the ground, it was closed. We don't know who closed the knife. Officer Waldman, in sworn testimony, said he didn't touch it. He said his partner didn't touch it. We're pretty sure Mr. Ramirez didn't close it. He was too busy trying to bleed out at the time. But we don't know if the knife was ever opened. When they put the knife next to Mr. Ramirez's body, they forgot to open it. And so we have probably the most important piece of evidence we have. Unfortunately, Mr. Ramirez was drunk. He confronted a man because he was driving too slow, rather inconvenient to him. And there are two witnesses. There's two law officers. And I'll concede, on average, law officers are more truthful than the average person. Anyway, I certainly hope so. But that doesn't tell us anything about this specific case. It seems a little incredible for somebody to try to kill somebody and then sue the city for getting shot. That brings us down to the job of the jury. You are Lady Justice. You know, the one with the blindfold over her eyes and holding the scales in her hand to decide who's right. There's a sword in that other hand to punish the wrongdoer. Mr. Ramirez decided to come to this court because he trusted the jury would right the wrong that was done to him. He knew from the criminal trial he didn't have the perfect case. But he could have just stayed home and licked his wounds. Mr. Ramirez was wrongfully shot in the back. Will you help him? Will you right the wrong that was done to him? Thank you, Your Honor and jury.